If there are no party ponies in the next episode, I am going to revolt. Hello, I'm Kate. I study classical reception, classical archaeology, and classical mythology, along with Percy Jackson. Okay, we are here today to review episode 7 of season 2 of the Percy Jackson TV show on Disney+. Along with pretty much every other episode on this show, especially this season. Ooh, so good. If I'm comparing episode 7s of the show, this episode wins by a landslide. I am still so upset about episode 7 of last season. It's better in retrospect, but the Underworld, guys. The Underworld. I'm never gonna forgive them for the Underworld. I don't care how little money they had. They could make it slightly better than what they gave us. That cost money. It was just put in the wrong places. But talking about season 2, episode 7, what an episode. I don't really know how to start this off because the whole thing was just so crazy and so completely different from the book. So while there will be things that I am relating to the book, I don't feel like this is going to be as close of a book to TV show review because it was so different. The similarities are, they're on the boat. Clarice brings the fleece back. And yeah, that's pretty much it. But let's get into it. So, starting with the opening. The opening is the flashback to when Luke and Annabeth find the tree, and Chiron explains that Zeus turned Thalia into a tree. Now, you can tell that Luke isn't quite taking it well. I don't think he really believes that Thalia is the tree, that that's what her body turned into. Which is pretty clear from how he yells, where is her body? I really like this scene because it shows, well, we already knew from the earlier episodes that Luke didn't want to go to the camp, right? And now he's stuck there, his best friend is dead, and, Annabeth is the only thing he has left from that relationship. And so it does a good job of showing why Annabeth and Luke have such a weird relationship, but also why he was so willing to hate the gods so much. He already disliked them. He already had his relationship problems with his father, which they haven't went into a lot yet. He already was on the run, and he didn't want to take the gods' favor and go to the camp. And now that he has done what the gods would want him to do, his best friend dies for it? I think they do a good job at this scene of highlighting both Annabeth and Luke and how that affects what choices they're making in the present day. And it was a great, strong opening. I also like how it gives Annabeth the physical decision to bring Thalia back, and not for her to come back on accident. It's these are choices that are being made by our heroes, and not things that are being thrown upon them. A lot of things do just kind of happen to the characters in this book, and they've removed a lot of those moments from the show and made them a lot more the drivers of their own lives. And I like that because, like, they have to make choices based off of these prophecies. And when the things just kind of happen to them, then they don't get the choice to make it happen or to try to not make it happen. It happens anyway. And so I appreciate that they do that. Also, because of what happens at the end of the episode. But I'm going to try to go in order for this episode. Again, like I was saying before about them making their own choices, in the book, they are forced onto the boat by Luke. Luke ends up knowing exactly where they're going to land, which is kind of insane. And Luke does that all the time in the book, where he just ends up places, and he's constantly surprising Percy and Annabeth and Grover. And instead here, it's Percy's choice to follow Luke, which is something that makes more sense since Luke was in the Sea of Monsters, instead of Luke just knowing that Percy would end up in Miami. And so I like that change as well because it makes more sense. And again, it gives these characters the license to make these own choices, whether they're smart or not. Because I wouldn't necessarily say it's a smart choice to climb onto a boat by herself, especially since Clarice and Percy refuse to work together. But that doesn't mean they're not going to make the choice. Talking about where the boat and where it is, I think it's a good choice to move it to Long Island, mostly because it wouldn't make sense in this context for Luke to go to Miami. There's no reason to be in Miami except assuming that's where Percy will end up. It makes sense if Luke is planning on attacking the camp like he was planning on doing in the book, though it doesn't actually happen in the book. It would make sense to be in Long Island. Now, does it fully make sense to stop and not go straight to camp? I don't know. Maybe they realized that they couldn't bring the boat itself to camp, and so they purposely stopped there so they could, like, get cars and then drive to Camp Half-Blood. There's also the possibility that they just wanted Kronos to be fully powered first, and he didn't get fully healed on the way to Long Island, so they needed to stop. I think it's funny that Luke could have started healing Kronos earlier, but instead of taking the fleece off of Annabeth as soon as she was healed enough, he just leaves it there, like, so she can get to full strength. She doesn't because, of course, Allison takes it off, but he's fully prioritizing Annabeth being completely healed over Kronos being more healed. Like, he doesn't know how long he has to heal Kronos. Like, crazy things happen. It's Percy Jackson. You should never assume you have the time. But he takes whatever time he does have and he prioritizes Annabeth over Kronos. And I think that is such a good detail. And it also explains why Kronos is losing his trust in Luke because Luke isn't prioritizing him. Talking about Luke and Annabeth, I was so happy that they highlighted the dagger in this season. I feel like in season 1, I don't even remember if she had the dagger or if it was a sword. Like, I remember it feeling longer in season 1. Maybe it was just because she was tinier and so it looked bigger. But it's very obvious that this is like a knife, a dagger, in this season. And of course, Luke knows the importance of the dagger, so he takes the dagger with him. And then he brings it to the room with Annabeth, and he highlights why it matters. Because, like, in the book, we find out about the connection between the knife and Luke in, like, the last book. And it's in Percy's head, right? We don't really hear much about how Annabeth feels about the knife. Like, she's been using it this whole time, and we know that she has this really complicated relationship with Luke where she refuses to believe that she can't save him no matter what he does. But we don't really see Annabeth's, like, reaction to the knife as much as I would like to in the book, and that is partly because everything's from Percy's point of view. But, like, it's Annabeth's dagger that is the key at the end of the day. And so it's nice to start that hinting early on and to highlight the importance of the dagger along with the other swords. Especially because in this episode, we get the big prophecy. And it talks about the weapon that'll save the day. Or destroy the world. And hearing that, and having Riptide, and having Backbiter, and having Annabeth's dagger, which I think needs a cool name because the other two do. But having all of them on the field in the episode, that brings that up. I know it wasn't highlighted, like it was just this. They didn't highlight the importance of the weapon in this episode. But just having them all on the field by the time that we get the prophecy, I think is great. Talking about things that are important to Annabeth. Another thing that's important to Annabeth is, of course, her hats. And it was just kind of cute seeing Percy have to do Annabeth's usual job of being the one that's sneaking around with the hats. I love that they mention that it's itchy when she wears it, because that was mentioned in one of the books. I can't remember if Annabeth is the one that says that, or if Percy borrows her hat and talks about it being itchy when you wear it. But I like that the TV show is taking most of the details from the books and putting them in there when they can. Like, it's not an important thing to say, but it shows that there is full-on connections between the books and the TV show. That they're not ignoring details, like how the movies just completely ignored that Percy likes blue food, to the point that the actors didn't know what the fans were talking about when they asked them questions about blue food. Like, this TV show remembers that wearing Annabeth's hat is itchy. Like, I love it. But I don't even know if that's the most important thing to say about Annabeth's hat. Because while it doesn't show up in the trailer for next episode, Percy leaves the hat on the ship in the room with Kronos. And so my question is, who is going to wear the hat in the last episode? Because it has to get back to Annabeth at some point. And it would be a waste of a plot device if no one tried to sneak in to Camp Half-Blood wearing the hat. So my question is, who is going to do that? Because it seems like Luke is the main, like, public-facing focus of the final battle. So will it be Allison? I think Allison would be a good choice. She could totally sneak in. Talking about people in camp, I might have been wrong, but it looked like Chris was already on the boat. I could be wrong, and Chris is going to show up at camp, and then he's going to, like, betray someone during the big fight. And it might have been someone else that was on the boat. Maybe it was the actor who plays Chris in season 1, but then they changed the actors and decided that his name wasn't Chris and that he was some other character. I'm going to have to check that. But one of the people in the boat that, like, went with Allison to attack Annabeth, I thought he was Chris. But I didn't feel like the reaction from Clarice was strong enough. And I'm terrible with names and faces. So I'm sure it was someone else, because it would make way more sense for Chris to stab Clarice in the back, metaphorically, in the big battle in the next episode, since that scene doesn't exist In the book, I can't make any guesses from the book on what's gonna happen, except that Chris is on Luke's side, and I'm waiting for that to be obvious and clear. I feel like if it was Luke in the ship, that would have been more heavily highlighted. So I do think it might just be the actor who was playing Luke's friend in season 1 that we all thought was Chris, but then they decided to cast someone else as Chris. But yeah, Chris isn't that important. Let's move on. Moving our focus to Grover and Tyson, who didn't have a lot to do this episode, but I was happy that they weren't in trouble. Also, I'm happy that the TV show is not going the route of the books, where like Grover's terrified of Tyson for no reason. Which, I mean, he never shows in book 2, but then all of a sudden in book 4, he's terrified of Tyson. And I'm happy that they're completely ignoring that plot, because it was so unhelpful to book 4. Like, book 4 is my favorite book of the entire series, but it never made sense that Grover didn't like Tyson. It was just like forced drama that did nothing. So I'm happy that they're like working together and kind of already acting like partners in crime. But so their job is to find a ride to get them home. And first of all, I think it's hilarious that they hotwired a vehicle and then didn't even drive it. Like, the people who own that car are going to go do it. See, it was broken into. See that it was successfully hotwired. But it's just there. They didn't take it. They're going to have to go fix the car and get the wires redone. But that's not even the best part of this scene. There's so many good things. One, they reminded us of the taxi scene last season, which is not in the books, but was so funny with how bad Percy was at driving. And the fact that Tyson is like, yeah, no, Percy cannot drive. Nope, not gonna happen. I do find it funny that Grover can't drive, because he's like, what, 25 now? And I know he still looks like a child. I mean, he doesn't. They've all grown to look like 15. But, like, I'm surprised in all those years he hasn't tried to get behind the wheel and learn how to drive. Like, last season, he was, like, fully, like, his memory was lost. There was no way you were going to put him behind the car wheel no matter what. He was basically drugged. But now that he's completely sober, I would have thought that he'd be able to drive. I do think it's funny he assumed that Tyson could drive. Maybe it's just that they all spend so much time at, like, camp or, like, in the city that, like, they're never somewhere where they need to drive. And none of them own cars. That could explain it. Because, I mean, Annabeth and Tyson and Percy are all too young. But technically, Grover's 25. He should be able to drive by now, right? But the best parts of this entire mini side plot is that Tyson is like, what if we get someone older and wiser to help us out? And I was immediately thinking, oh yeah, that's how Chiron's gonna show up. But I'm also thinking, but they already said that the iris messaging system wasn't working, which is crazy. It's not that it's never happened in the books. I feel like something similar has happened, but it's not anywhere close to normal, and they don't explain why it's not up. And so I remember thinking, of course they'll get Chiron, and then I was like, wait a second, how would Chiron how would they get a hold of Chiron if the iris messaging system is down? I think the iris messaging system was down specifically so they wouldn't call Chiron this episode. I think that they didn't want us to get excited about the party ponies coming and then not deliver them. So they tell us really early on that it's not going to be the party ponies because they can't get a hold of anyone. And Chiron gets to them in Miami because of an iris message. But Grover's, like, do you mean, and the way that Tyson words it still makes you think it's going to be Chiron. But my other question was, Tyson doesn't know Chiron, because in the books, Tyson meets Chiron, but he doesn't meet Chiron in the show. And so then I remembered that I saw like a screenshot of the episode ahead of time. And of course, as I had started to guess, it was Sally. And it was just so funny because these kids are been saving the world, fighting monsters, doing all these like grown-up things. And then the moment they get on the phone with an adult, they just sound like little kids trying not to get in trouble. Especially because they don't even need to lie to Sally. She knows what's going on. Like, she was going to find out at some point that Percy left camp. They did not need to lie to her, but like, they're still like 13-year-olds. So they're automatically like, I don't want to get in trouble. And so they lie, and she fully clocks it, and it's just so relatable. And I love when these characters remind us that they're still children, that they're not fully grown adults, and that they may be big action heroes, but they're still little kids in the way that matters, which is talking to their parents, I guess. Oh, I did like that she was in Montauk, and it's showing that she went on a little vacation of her own. Down to the beach house. That was cute. That was cute. It also shows that she's close-ish to where they are in Long Island, so it's not a long drive, which is a good detail. Because usually she would be in the city, which would be a much longer drive, and it wouldn't be incredibly helpful to get her to to get her to go, because they would probably get off the boat before she got there. But by having her in Montauk, a place that we know that she likes going, it makes more sense. I like the detail. Okay, moving back to Luke. Luke and Annabeth's conversation about Thalia, it was so interesting that they decided to change it again from the book. So in the book, Luke knows that Thalia will come back to life when they put the golden fleece on her tree, which is why he says that he was going to give them the fleece after bringing back Kronos. Because then not only would they have Kronos alive, but they would have Thalia, who Luke was sure he could manipulate to be on the side of Kronos, alive and almost 16. Now, did he know that she was going to be older and that she wasn't still going to be like 12 or 13, whatever age she was when she died? No, he didn't know that. But in the TV show, she's already 15. So it makes sense that she'd come back the same age instead of growing slowly with Rick Riordan's time loopholes, or like she ages, but just slowly enough that she's almost 16, but not. I love Rick Riordan's age loopholes, or time loopholes, like in the book where they make it to Miami and they're like, it's been 10 days. And Clarice is like, how? And they're like, magic. It happens so often whenever he needs to have, like, to cut out time because they could easily do the quest in the amount of time they have. He's like, magic made time go faster. They were in a place that wasn't Earth, and multiple days went by because of it. Sorry. But yeah, that's not the point. The point is that Luke knows that Thalia will come back to life, and it's part of his plan to bring her back to life in the book. And in the show, they make it clear that Luke had absolutely no idea. And if he did know, he would want to bring her back, but not because of the plan, but because he loves Thalia. And he's so confused why Kronos wouldn't tell him. And of course, Kronos doesn't tell him. He just punishes him and tells him to kill Percy. But I think he tells him to kill Percy because he's realized that he can't manipulate Percy, and he didn't want Thalia on the stage when he already had one demigod to manipulate. Too many powerful demigods is too unpredictable. So he didn't want Thalia to be alive again. But now that Percy has shown that he's not gonna be manipulated, he refused to listen to Kronos and just took the fleece anyway. Now Kronos wants Luke to kill Percy and then still save Thalia, because then he has a new person to manipulate. And it's very smart, and I like how they've changed the plot slightly to make the characters, like, decisions be, like, a little bit more manipulative and a little less. There is always something about Luke being so sure about Thalia coming back that it worked, but, like, it was always a little clunky. To be fair, I think this book in general has always been a little clunky. It's always been my least favorite. And that's one of the reasons why I don't have a lot of problems with the changes that they're making. But it always felt a little useless, the whole, like, Luke knew, but he's trying to stop them anyway, but he's not really trying to stop them. I think that his planning right now makes a lot more sense to me, and the idea that Thalia wasn't Kronos' original plan, but now it's like his backup that he's doing now that Percy's kind of off the table. I think that makes a lot of sense. Talking about Kronos manipulating people and, like, playing with the characters in the show like a chessboard, I think it's pretty obvious why he wanted to kill Annabeth. I think he realized that Annabeth isn't useful to his plans. By having Annabeth alive, Kronos can't manipulate Luke as much as he wants to. Because as shown earlier in the episode, Luke prioritizes Annabeth over Kronos. And so if he gets Annabeth out of the way and kills her, then Luke will have no one left, and he will be more likely to go along with Kronos. To be fair, that could also go in the opposite direction, and that could cause Luke to go against Kronos. But at this point, he has given up everything for Kronos, so who would he go to? Would he trust that Camp Half-Blood would take him back? Would he want that? I don't know. But it's clear that Kronos has decided that Annabeth is more of a hindrance to his plan than helpful at this moment. I think that next season, Kronos is going to realize that Annabeth is useful because Percy will do anything to save her. And that, I think, is one of the reasons she's going to get kidnapped next season. Because, I mean, she got kidnapped this season, and look what he's doing now. I think that this is a hint towards what's going to happen next season and why everything's going to happen, right? Like, Percy would do anything for Annabeth in the book, but we've already shown that Percy will really do anything for Annabeth in this show. And so I can't wait to see that literally be the entire plot of next season. No, but let's backtrack. After this, we get to the big action scenes, which are Percy fighting Luke, like happens in the book, but instead of having a big crowd, there's just the two of them. And Clarice saving Annabeth. Now, of course, one thing I like about this scene is that it shows that despite Percy wanting to focus on Annabeth and Clarice wanting to focus on the fleece, they end up doing the opposite jobs. Percy finds the fleece and Clarice saves Annabeth. And I like that because it cleans. I like that because it helps with the plot and the character progression of both characters. Percy is sure that he would burn down Olympus for Annabeth. But when Annabeth asks him to go save the fleece for her, he immediately goes and does it. Clarice says that she will do anything to finish the quest, even if that means leaving another camper behind. But the moment she hears that Annabeth is about to be attacked by 5 people at once, she immediately goes and saves Annabeth. And I really enjoy how they show that character progression, and it kind of is a nice clean ending to Clarice's fear of losing other people who she's working with, like the ghosts, but also her need to finish this quest and how those 2 different needs have been affecting her decision-making throughout the season. So I really like that. But one thing that I find a little weird, I'm not gonna lie, is Percy getting stabbed. Now, it looked awesome how Luke stabs Percy through the elevator doors. Amazing. But like, Percy has the fleece right next to him. He immediately heals himself, so unless there's something we don't know, Percy's fine. And so it was just there for shock value, and while it looked cool, it wasn't in the book, so we didn't need it for that reason, and it didn't add anything except Percy looking worse for wear than he had already. And man, do these characters look like they've been at sea for a week. Ugh, they do not look good by the end. But then, first, they make it to the top of the ship. Percy, like in the book, tells Clarice to take the fleece, but she goes on blackjack, which not only makes the prophecy correct, and makes it so Clarice doesn't have to go through customs with the fleece, or like go on an airplane, or I guess there wouldn't be customs. She doesn't have to buy an airplane ticket, wait, get on it, and then go, and then somehow probably make it to camp after Percy at that point, like she does in the book. Instead, she gets to take blackjack, which both finishes that plot of the book, but also highlights blackjack. So we get to see more of him next season, and I'm very happy about it. Love blackjack. And I like that he's just not just like a random character here. Like, we can tell he's gonna become more important with how they highlight him. So then they get in the car with Sally, and Annabeth starts talking about healing Thalia. And this is the first time we see how Percy actually feels about the idea that Thalia might be healed. Because he didn't really react to Annabeth telling it to him earlier in the episode. But now he has heard the prophecy. And he knows that it could be anyone who is a child of the main 3 gods and 16. And he knows that Thalia was almost 16. And he also has that dream of her looking all dark and brooding and evil. And so, of course, he thinks this is a bad idea. But he loves Annabeth. And how is he supposed to tell her that she can't have her best friend back? And so I love how we get all of that without him saying a single word. It's so well done. And it's so great because I feel like this is really going to make the disagreements between Thalia and Percy next season so much stronger on like the basis for why he doesn't like her. Because in the book, it's more like, oh, they're both just hot-headed because they're both children of the main 3 gods. And so, of course, they're going to fight. But here, we have some stronger reasoning for why he might not trust her to be the child of the prophecy. And we know that Percy ends up deciding that it's going to be him who is in the prophecy. And he hasn't made that choice yet. He doesn't know he can make that choice yet. But here, you can see that while he might not want himself to be the child of the prophecy, The one person who could make it so that it's not him, because Talia is older than him, you can tell he doesn't really want her to be the child of the prophecy because he doesn't know if he can trust her. And I think that's really cool, how they show that. Okay, the episode ends with Kronos telling Luke to go to camp and to kill Percy and to take over the camp. And I really like the scene because it shows how Luke is being manipulated into doing what he's doing. Like, clearly he started all of this because he really doesn't like the gods and he was making these choices for a reason. But you can see that since then, Kronos' manipulation is what's keeping Luke here. And I'm excited to see how this grows as Kronos slowly takes over Luke's body. Like, this is just the beginning of that, and that's cool. One problem I have with this episode, but I think it'll be saved in the last episode, is I want the party ponies, okay? This season, I just wanted the guinea pig, which we got. I wanted the bubble, which we did not get. And I want the party ponies, which is TBD. Because the whole fight scene in this last episode does not happen in the book. And so maybe the party ponies will come and save camp instead of having saved just Percy and Annabeth and Grover and Tyson. And that would be awesome. That would be an amazing scene. Like, the demigods are being overpowered by Kronos' army, but then the party ponies come in and save the day, and it becomes a draw, and then Kronos' army leaves, and then Chiron gets his job back. Because right now, there's no clear reason why Chiron is going to get his job back, but we know he will. So I think that they're just moving the party ponies an episode later, and I didn't feel like they were needed in this episode. So I think that'll be fine. But if they're not there, I will be upset. But yeah, that was episode 7 of season 2. And it was a cool, awesome episode that was so different from the book, and that is not a bad thing. So come back next week, and hopefully I will talk about the final episode. There is a small chance with school being back that I will just somehow forget to film this. But I will try my best not to do that. I'm trying to be as ahead on homework as possible so that I have time to film this for the 3 people watching. So I will see you later.